everybody and welcome back to Love English. I'm Sabrah.
And I'm Leila.
And we are both British University English teachers. Now this lesson is going to be a little bit more relaxed than normal. As you can see, we're in a bit more of an informal setting. And what we are doing in these lessons, which will be a series, is we're going to be discussing current topics and discussing them in a bit of an academic way and teaching you vocabulary as it comes up.
This also means that we'll be explaining some of the issues around these topics, talking about problems, solutions, sharing our opinions, which you may or may not agree with, and certainly do comment below and share your opinions as well.
Absolutely, guys. So this series is going to be called
Love English Talks.
So today's topic is going to be on the environment, which is certainly a much debated topic at the moment. We've certainly seen a lot of stories about this in the press, as in the UK, we've been seeing huge environmental protests from the group Extinction Rebellion. So you've probably seen that as well, Leila.
I have. There's been a lot of people that have been rather unhappy when they're jumping on tube trains and stuff like that.
Yes, so they're a huge group, they're all across the world, and they are saying that they are rebelling against extinction of many different plant life, animals, many different species. So they're calling it Rebelling Against Extinction, Extinction Rebellion. And of course, our impending extinction, because if there's no world here, if climate change causes the world...
Not a very cheerful topic.
No, it's not. If climate change causes the world to no longer exist, then of course we will be extinct as well. So
wow.
Maybe you know about them, guys. They're actually all over the world, but there have been huge demonstrations in London against that. What do you think about that, Leila?
I think we need people to demonstrate and to protest and to raise the issue in the media. I think obviously sometimes it's inconvenient, but then so is climate change, really. And I think unfortunately it's an issue that we do need to take more seriously nowadays. So I'm kind of all for it, even if it is an inconvenience when they're delaying public transport. I think really all of us need to be more active. And I think you and I even... we're aware of these issues, but you know, life takes over and you kind of think,
It's hard to really set aside time to actually really do something about it. I mean, I was trying to recycle. Obviously, I'm a vegetarian, which does make a difference in my opinion.
It does.
I'm interested to know what you guys think. But I'm doing little things like that, but still, I know I could do a lot more personally. But before we get kind of looking at the solutions, let's really understand what the problem is that we're discussing today. Now, Leila, what do you think? What is the difference between global warming and climate change?
So when you start talking about this, I think those are the two terms that you're going to hear most often. Now, global warming is referring to how the Earth is actually heating up. So the more CO2 we emit, the more heat is trapped within our atmosphere. I'm simplifying it. I'm not a scientist. I'm an English teacher. But when we talk about climate change, that is, of course, referring to the changes in our climate, the weather system and patterns that we have. And I'm sure in your countries, you've noticed changes to the weather. In the UK, we tend to we've always had a lot of rain, but I think we do get kind of very unstable, excessive amounts of rain that cause flooding and problems like this.
Yeah, exactly.
We've seen as well an impact on crops and agriculture, where the weather is so unstable, you cannot predict, and you don't know when is the best time to plant something, and actually the weather can be very, very damaging to crops.
Yeah, so climate change is causing weather fluctuations, isn't it? Extreme weather, you can't rely on the weather exactly. One of the things it's actually causing is a problem with biodiversity. So when one species goes extinct, it can ruin the entire food chain, it can ruin that whole ecological system. So then we're seeing other species die as a result of that, and then certain plant life and crops can't grow either. I'm sure you've seen in the newspapers the problem with the decline of bees and how many things that could impact on in terms of food production.
That would be terrible.
If we lose
catastrophic. That's a good word.
Catastrophic. It really would be, yeah. So biodiversity is a big thing as well when it comes to climate change. And of course, there is the rising sea levels, because as the ice melts, and as many of you may know, a huge piece of ice recently melted much more quickly than they thought it would. I'll show you a picture here, guys.
Yes, there's a lot of negative impacts that we're seeing of this climate change already, and we're being told by scientists and experts that this is only going to escalate and to become worse.
So what's the solution? It's clearly something we have to take seriously.
And I think it's important to realise that there's a solution for governments, but there's also things that you guys can do, and that Sabrah and I are starting to do and want to do more of. So little ideas. And again, if you have any ideas of your own, comment below.
Yes, please express them below.
Okay, so vegetarian.
Okay, so my impression, or I hold the view that being a vegetarian does decrease the emissions. It does lower your carbon footprint. And before you're cynical about this, there's a couple of reasons why, and they are scientifically proven. One is that the cows are actually producing methane. And when this goes into the atmosphere, they're producing it from their burps, actually, not from their bottom.
Oh,
from
really?
Their mouth.
Yeah. Farting.
No,
they burp. Cows burp.
And obviously there's billions of cows worldwide, and they're all burping. And this methane is going into the atmosphere, and that's causing heating.
Wow. Yeah.
And the other thing is, of course, that to graze cattle, you have to cut down trees, so that's leading to deforestation. What do trees do? They absorb carbon. So for me, I choose to live a vegetarian lifestyle, but I know that's not for everyone. But I do think cutting down on meat.
Yes, nice phrase of it.
Yeah,
to cut down, to reduce your consumption.
That's right.
To consume means to eat, and it's a more formal way, academic way of talking about this topic. So to reduce your consumption of meat, which actually I agree with. I can't be a vegetarian. I'm sorry, but I am making sure that I do not eat too much red meat. Even, I'm trying to think more about having kind of full like veggie curries.
That's nice.
Veggie, informal, vegetarian.
Yeah.
So yes, I do think that cutting down your meat consumption is a compromise.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. So that's what I do. How about you, Leila? What do you think of the other solutions?
I think a lot of it comes down to travel. And actually, it's not just about, whether you use public transport or not. Obviously, public transport is a good way to reduce your carbon footprint in terms of travel, but obviously thinking about how many flights you take. And I think that's something that I need to consider. I do fly around quite a lot. We both do. We're a bit jet set.
Jet set means you like travel. It's quite a kind of stylish way to say you like travel.
But I am going to look to research offsetting your carbon footprint.
Oh, yeah.
So you can, when you travel, I want to look into it because I'm a bit skeptical. I want to make sure that these companies, these websites, when you do pay something towards them, they are then going out and investing and planting more trees in different areas. So it's called offsetting.
I've heard of this.
Yeah. So there was a thing about Meghan and Harry taking a lot of private jets, and apparently Elton John offset their carbon emissions by giving some money to a charity, or to an organisation rather, that then invested and I guess it's to do with trees or how they capture the carbon, and basically it's balancing, offsetting, so that your carbon footprint comes down, the emissions that you are putting out there.
Wow, that sounds something really worth exploring. Definitely. I mean, for me personally speaking, I do find that I want to do as much as I can, because I love nature, I love the environment, and so I really want to take care of it. But I know that in the West, sometimes we can be a bit hypocritical.
Very.
Because we our lifestyles, we have cars.
I think that's
true. We do travel quite a lot. We have a lot of appliances in our homes, which,
we want the lifestyle. We do want the lifestyle. I think that's part of the problem, is that we are all, and it's not just in the West, emerging economies and other developing countries want to have a more Western lifestyle. They want the cars, they want their phones, they want to have different exotic food that has
been imported, so it's flown.
What's the term for that we refer to? Food miles.
Yes, food miles.
A lot of vocabulary in this lesson, guys. So your food miles are basically, you have to work out, if you buy a cucumber, if it comes from a shop down the road and that's come from a a farm close by, then that would have quite a small footprint, carbon footprint or food miles.
Yeah.
But if you buy something that has come from Spain,
Peru,
I mean, that's crazy. So, you know,
a lot of things do that.
That's been imported, and that has taken a lot of energy to do.
Yeah, absolutely right. And of course, England, we're a small island, and so we do import a lot of food because we don't have the climate.
We would just
for
eat
the kind of
potatoes.
foods we've got used to. You know, we've got used to eating bananas, pineapples. They all come in from places like South America and Africa for us. So huge amount of food miles is incurred there.
So that's a good way that's the possible solution, is where you're aware of where your food is coming from, and you buy local produce. Okay, so one thing I'd like to add, and I think is very relevant and we haven't covered, is basically renewable energy. So our energy source. And of course we know that the biggest culprit, the cause of climate change and global warming is fossil fuels.
Yes, absolutely.
Carbon,
burning of coal,
oil, you know, and I think we've got the technology there now, and there are people, companies investing, but I think maybe governments need to do more to encourage that. Yeah,
sustainable methods for everything, really, actually, for agriculture, for the motor industry, for the travel industry. We need for fashion, we need to be switching to more sustainable methods, which could mean lower production, and actually we might not have access to everything we want to like we've had currently, but it will mean that the planet can survive and we can continue living these lifestyles. We don't have to dramatically cut down. So yes, sustainable methods would be something.
What does sustainable mean? I think that's it's a great word. It's a key word that you'll hear in these kind of debates. How would we define that?
So sustainable means that it's something that can continue for a long time. It's not something that if you do it too much now, you won't be able to continue because, for example, with the oil is not sustainable. It's going to run out. Whereas solar energy is sustainable because it's going to, the sun, as far as we know, isn't going to disappear. We can continue using solar power. Would you say that's sustainable, Leila?
Yes, absolutely. I think also when it comes to things like sustainable fashion, it's thinking about the impact on the environment. And the fact that you would be using materials and methods of production that are less damaging to the environment. It's very hard to find anything that's completely not damaging.
Yes, I know.
But it's all about minimizing impact, minimizing human impact.
That's a good way to put it.
You should make an effort, even if you make a few changes. Over time, they become part of your routine, and so it's not as difficult. So really just having one or two things that you kind of change over a couple of weeks and then maintain, and then maybe you can add to that. So me eating less meat, maybe cutting out Nutella. I mean, cutting out means removing from my diet.
That's gonna
one
be
teaspoon. I'll have
serious
one teaspoon. But yes, I think just making a few changes can have a big impact, because if we all made a few changes, it is going to change things. And it's changing the mindset, changing the way we think, realizing that having the biggest, fastest car is not necessarily going to A, make us that much happier, but B, going to help the environment. You could have a more, electric car. Why not? They're becoming more affordable.
That's true. Definitely, if I can afford it in the future, I'll buy an electric car. And you're quite good. You don't even drive a car, so
I know. That's because I'm lazy. It's not because of the beat. But yeah, I mean, that is one thing that probably I use more public transport. Even if I did have a car,
you wouldn't use it that
I wouldn't.
much.
No.
Yeah.
So why don't you share some of your ideas? What could we all do? 2 or 3 things that you think we could do as a community to reduce our carbon footprint, to help the environment, to be a friend to Mother Nature.
Exactly. Very nicely put, Leila.
Thank you very much.
And also maybe, guys, you could share a couple of things that you've noticed are different about the climate in your country, and things that you're trying to do now to offset climate change. Is there something you're doing now, a tip that you could share with the rest of us? We would really love to hear.
Now, we hope you've enjoyed that Love English Talks, but we obviously want to be talking about topics you're interested in. So,
Absolutely,
I think some suggestions?
That would be fantastic. Yes, guys, what would you like us to talk about next? Do tell us in the comments below.
Thank you so much for watching. We hope that you have enjoyed this conversation.
Yes.
Practiced your listening skills, learned a lot of new vocabulary.
Yeah.
I think we can maybe add the list.
Yes, we'll do a glossary as well.
We'll do a glossary of the vocabulary for this conversation.
Yeah.
And please do try to use some of the vocabulary next time you talk about the environment.
That's right, guys. We'll see you soon on Love English Talks. Bye-bye.
Thank you for watching.